Welcome to Zentangle Project Pack No.19. This is day 8. My name is Rick.
Hi, I'm Maria, and look at this one. Boy, so cool. I love all the different pieces you've done so far.
Well, today we're going to do the genus of square grid tangles. So this is a very...
Gee, I wonder why they asked you to do this.
Why they asked me to do this, right?
Rick is the king of square.
Square. Thank you, dear. So you'll see I am going behind the elements, and what I'm doing is...
When you say elements, you're talking about the stuff that you already drew.
It's already done, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm leaving a little gap there, and I am creating a square-ish grid. The grid is going to be in this arced section, and so I'm following the overall arc, and I'm just putting these lines in one direction, and then I'll put them in the other direction. And I'm doing it in sort of like, I think like the top 3 sections of that pie slice. And I hope everybody is enjoying the pictures on the newsletters that are going out. And if you're watching this later, be sure to go to the website and look at the some of the pictures that we do. We have helpmates around the house, and if you don't know what that is, please go check out the newsletters for this series. So once I have them all done in one direction, then I'll define it in the other direction. And, you know, this is one of the reasons, like we call Knightsbridge instead of checkerboard, because just like Knightsbridge starts off as a square grid of lines going in 2 different directions, by not calling it a checkerboard, which suggests that it has to be straight lines in both directions.
And all the squares the same size.
The squares the same size and perpendicular and everything. We can just sort of, what's that? Silly putty it.
Yes, yes.
And I'm not going to obsess too much about they're like all have to be square, because this is one of the beautiful things about...
It fits in a pizza slice.
How
can it be square?
Well, like down at the bottom, there's sort of rectangular there.
Okay.
But you'll see, like, this is one of the beautiful things about grid tangles, is that even though the shapes are different proportions as you go along, you can still figure out like what the middle of it is, and it'll all make sense as we go along. So just imagining where things are, drawing behind, putting that line in. And this is a really good exercise too, because the more this piece gets filled up with tangles, the more drawing behind takes on a whole other meaning. Okay, so now that we've got that grid, going to go into one section, and whatever we do in one section, we're going to do in all the sections.
And this is a fairly simple fragment where they're all the same thing. They're not flipped or anything like that.
So we do a diagonal, and then from the middle of the diagonal, we draw a line this direction, and we draw a line in the other direction. And this was inspired by some inlaid work that we saw in an antique store. And after we saw it, we walked over and figured out, okay, how can we deconstruct this and make a tangle out of it? And this was many years ago.
I can see that you're using an 01 to fill this in.
Right.
But it was because he had it in his hand. But you might want to go to the 08 for this much fill in.
Yeah, and I think I do when I do all of them later. And, you know, and that's something we go back and forth with, like, you know, do you keep the same pen? There's something beautiful about just using one tool the whole time. But this is that's a choice that you get to make as your, what works best for you.
Well, this is about 30 times the size of a regular
Th-
Zentangle
there's
tire.
that.
So there's that.
There's that. Okay, so that's what we're going to do in every one of these little grid sections, or in our vernacular, reticula.
This is called Cubine. Did you already say that?
Oh, I didn't, no.
Cubine. Cubine.
Now, one suggestion is that you draw corner to corner and just do it in one element, because you might think, oh, I can just go zip through and just nail the intersection and keep going and just go across multiple squares. But
it has a different look.
It has a different look, and this is a bit more precise, and it really focuses your attention on each square.
Now, I would not have said it was more precise. I probably would have said it was more interesting. The look of it is more interesting because they tend to bend a little bit differently.
Well, I say it's more precise because when I do it the other way, I miss the corner entirely. So there's that.
There is that.
Now, you'll also notice that I've chosen to do a particular element in each one of these grid sections, and then I'll go back and do another one, the next element. There's less turning the tile or this piece of paper back and forth, which is easier for me and for you for your like almost seasickness sometimes, when this paper keeps spinning around. But you can see, even though that's rectangular instead of square, you can still go corner to corner.
Funny thing, it's like driving a car, okay?
Okay.
The driver can be all over the place and not feel nauseated, but the person sitting next to him
may or may not, yeah.
So I think that just the same way that the person drawing on the big piece of paper and spinning the piece of paper doesn't get nauseous, but the customers on the other end watching may get a little queasy.
Well, particularly with this large sheet, too.
Yes. Yeah.
Not to mention it keeps bumping the camera stand.
I know.
And about the time that I got to this point, I thought, well, instead of going back and forth, I'm just going to do one of these strokes. Maybe it's on the next one, but I'll just do one stroke in one orientation and then come back and do the stroke in the other orientation. So it's just a nice rhythm. And you can play with things like this as you tangle. And, this was not planned. But I'm just sort of experimenting as we go along in real time.
Now, see, I would do it this way all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Most of the time. Some of the time.
And, it's also the difference in shading, too, because, I know, Molly likes to shade and use the tortillon as she goes along, and then some other people like to just put down the graphite over the whole piece and then go back and do the tortillon everywhere. So this is a very unique tangle in that it is I think it's one of the few tangles, maybe there might be one or two others, where shading is an integral part of the pattern. Usually shading is something that we add later, or you don't have to add. You can do it in different ways, but we'll show you in a little bit how this tangle really comes alive with a particular type of shading. So again, it's just this lovely rhythm of going back and forth. I missed one. Let's see if I get it later.
You always do, right?
So now I'm going to use the 08 to go in, and like Maria said, it's going to be easier to fill it in.
And take your time. Maybe put some music on.
And this is something like, you'll also develop your own style of filling in. I like to, define the edges really carefully, and then I'm a little bit more free to be a bit more rambunctious inside there.
That's your rambunctious side.
Yes, it's just coming out there.
Didn't know that about you.
So there's something really strong about this, solid color. So is this a grid tangle? Is this a drama tangle? You can see why the zentomology of all this has so many overlaps. And then just figure out, okay, how this is going to go behind these elements. And I'm leaving a little of an intentional gap there because I want to let that vertigo sort of float over it. I don't want to come up and go into the ink. So I'm just standing off a little bit. Just filling in each one. And as Maria said, take your time, remember to breathe, relax.
Enjoy the drama.
Enjoy the drama. Nice. And a light, even though we're doing all this fill, just a very light hold on the pen is all you need. Really looking forward to shading this whole piece because I encourage you to actually take a picture of your work, maybe as you're going along, but definitely take a picture of it before we shade it. We should remind people to do that because it's so dramatic to have like a before and after and get a sense of like, wow, the way you can make changes, even though everything underneath the graphite seems so tenuous, but it changes the presentation of all of the ink very dramatically. It's going to be a lot of fun. Just using that background with a little bit of aura, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think we've got all of them, and I'm just going to show you. I don't think you need to do this part, but I just wanted you to see the other component of Cubine. So there's three quote unquote colors. There's the color of the paper. There's the black of that inner square, and then we're going to choose one of the paper color that's not ink, and that will get graphite. And it creates this really lovely trompe-l'oeil, three-dimensional when it's done.
Beautiful.
So that's a square grid tangle.
Mm.
And here we have...
Who's this?
This is Julie's.
Julie's.
So she's got hers in there.
Yep.
Sitting down like in those two sections. So that gives you an idea. You can pick and choose where you want them. And
I went sort of
here's Maria's. And Maria's is aurid and definitely not straight lines.
So sort of more crazy Cubine.
Crazy Cubine, right? And she did hers in brown. So you've got all of these options. So that's why seeing these is so cool. Here's Martha's.
And she has a little aura in
Aura
there, too.
embellishment. Yeah. And then see on the right how they're sort of like tailing
like
off.
Kites, yes. like kite tails, right?
That's so sweet.
How cool is that?
And then here's Molly's. And Molly's did her fill in, well, you can see a totally different presentation. So,
that's a neat idea, though, instead
of
having to do all that fill in.
Yeah.
I like that.
So once again, we're having a blast. We hope you are too, and we will see you tomorrow.
Day 9.
Day 9.
Wow. Okay.
Bye now.
Bye.